Colin and Samir, you guys have worked closely with them. Perfect example of someone who should and has, built a course. Will you explain it, if you can, just some of the ways that they validated? And then I know that they're kind of moving potentially from this cohort to an evergreen as well.
Yeah, so validation there has been a lot about asking their audience. They have an incredibly active and vibrant Discord community. They have published press, so there's lots of different ways for them to get in front of their audience. They have creator support, so they're at a lot of conferences and events. So it was quite easy for us to kind of get feedback in terms of what people were interested in learning there. And I think they quite rightly took the approach of doing something high touch first. So doing something cohort based, because even the difference between the way the curriculum evolved and manifested between cohort one and cohort two was quite significant, because they were able to get so much direct feedback from the people in the first cohort around what are the things that are valuable, what are the gaps. And, even though Colin and Samir have spent 14 years learning YouTube, and they have learned so much in doing that, distilling that down into specific pain points and kind of learning outcomes for people is always going to be a bit of a process. And it's always helpful to have that, rapid feedback from people.
Do you guys ever do any exercises around pricing in terms of just testing the pricing? I think courses are inherently challenging, and I know Colin and Samir have talked about this on previous episodes. Them trying to figure out what is worth, how much should we make this? We want to make it accessible, but we also need to price it correctly. What challenges have you seen around that?
Yeah, pricing is always tricky because it is always related to perceived value. And so, there's a reason an iPhone is so expensive, and it's not necessarily because of the hardware. There are a lot of different ways to approach this, and I wouldn't say any of them are particularly gospel. If you have volume and scale, the one of the value or the benefits of having that volume and scale is you can potentially A/B test. So you could take small segments and send out audience A is getting this offer, audience B, C is getting different offers, and start to get some validation there. For a higher ticket product where you don't necessarily have a huge customer base, that's a little harder because you're going to cannibalize some of the customer base in doing that testing. But this is something that SaaS companies will do a lot is, hey, we're thinking about a price change. We'll do kind of small testing. The other opportunity, and one of the opportunity that I think really leverages the relationship a creator has, is you can be quite transparent. Hey, I'm doing this thing. I want everybody's feedback. This is what's going to be included. And you will always get some, basically people will always say they are willing to pay less than they likely will because they're interested in getting it for less. But actually, Jay Klaus, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with, from Creator Science, such a smart guy. I love all of his content. He gave a talk at Vid Summit, I guess, a couple months ago. And when he was talking about pricing validation, I thought this is such a clever way to approach it, is to ask people 4 questions around pricing. The first being, what would make this a no-brainer? What would make this totally out of reach? What would make this a stretch, but I'd be willing? I can't remember the fourth one, but that's definitely something that we're starting to incorporate into some of our questions around pricing, because instead of getting one singular data point that you have to create some caveats around, you get 4 data points and you can infer a lot more from that. So that's something that we've already rolled out once in the 2 months since hearing Jay speak about it.